On the evening of August 20th, 2025, Atlanta, Georgia, was shaken by tragic news that spread quickly across the United States and the global music world. Brent Hinds, the celebrated guitarist, vocalist, and co-founder of the Grammy-winning heavy metal band Mastodon, was killed in a motorcycle crash at the age of 51. The accident occurred near the intersection of Memorial Drive SE and Boulevard in southeast Atlanta, an area Hinds had known well after making the city his home for decades. Riding his Harley-Davidson motorcycle, something he was known to love almost as much as playing guitar, Hinds collided with a BMW SUV whose driver reportedly failed to yield when making a turn. Witnesses described the crash as devastating, with the force of impact leaving Hinds unresponsive on the pavement. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, but despite their best efforts, he was pronounced dead soon after. The Fulton County Medical Examiner later confirmed his identity, and the shocking news sent waves of grief throughout the metal community. For many fans, the tragedy felt surreal. Brent Hinds was not just another musician. He was a creative force of nature, a guitarist whose distinctive tone, unorthodox riffs, and emotionally charged solos had helped redefine heavy metal for a new generation. His death at only 51 seemed unbearably premature, cutting short a life and career that had already contributed so much and still promised more. Social media quickly filled with tributes from fellow musicians, fans, and even casual listeners who remembered the first time they heard Mastodon's music. To them, Hinds wasn't just a guitarist, he was an innovator who brought something truly different to heavy metal. Hinds' story began far from the international spotlight. He was born William Brent Hinds on January 16, 1974, in Helena, Alabama, a small town outside Birmingham. Growing up in the South exposed him to a diverse blend of musical traditions, from country and bluegrass to blues and southern rock. Those influences never left him. They seeped into his playing style, setting him apart from peers who grew up on a steady diet of thrash or punk. Hinds' guitar work always carried a certain twang and rawness that gave Mastodon its unmistakable flavor. As a teenager, he became obsessed with the guitar, teaching himself by ear and spending countless hours refining his skills. Friends from Helena would later recall how he seemed destined to live a life driven by music, even if no one could have predicted just how far that passion would take him. In the mid-1990s, Hinds relocated to Atlanta, a city that at the time had a thriving underground music scene. It was there that fate brought him together with bassist Troy Sanders. The two first played together in a short-lived group called 4 Hour Fogger, a chaotic experimental act that quickly burned out but left behind an important legacy. It proved the chemistry between Hinds and Sanders. When 4 Hour Fogger disbanded, the pair joined forces with guitarist Bill Kelleher and drummer Brand Daler to form a new project. That project became Mastodon, officially formed in 2000, and from the very beginning it was clear they had created something extraordinary. Mastodon's early sound was ferocious, rooted in sludge and hardcore but tinged with a complexity that hinted at progressive rock influences. Their debut album, Remission 2002, put the metal underground on notice. The critics and fans alike were struck by the intensity of their sound, with Hinds' guitar playing standing out as jagged, inventive, and unlike anything else in heavy music at the time. Yet it was their second album, Leviathan 2004, that catapulted them to wider recognition. A concept album loosely based on Herman Melville's Moby Dick, Leviathan was hailed as a masterpiece, praised not only for its crushing heaviness, but also for its imagination and ambition. Hinds' guitar work on tracks like Blood and Thunder showcased both his raw aggression and his ability to craft soaring melodies, cementing him as one of the most exciting guitarists of his generation. The success of Leviathan opened doors, but Mastodon refused to rest on their accomplishments. Each album pushed into new territory. Blood Mountain, 2006, brought greater experimentation, blending psychedelic flourishes with their trademark heaviness. Crack the Sky, 2009, often regarded as the band's creative high point, dove into progressive rock structures and mystical themes, delivering an emotionally charged record that highlighted Hinds' melodic instincts as much as his metallic firepower. Over the years, the band managed a delicate balance. They remained experimental and true to their underground roots while also achieving mainstream recognition. Albums like The Hunter, 2011, and Once More, Round the Sun, 2014, expanded their audience, while Emperor of Sand, 2017, earned Mastodon their first Grammy Award for Best Metal Performance for the track Sultan's Curse. Their final album with Hinds, Hushed and Grim, 2021, was a sprawling double album written in the wake of personal loss, acclaimed for its depth and maturity. For fans, it now stands as a bittersweet closing chapter to the era of Mastodon with Hinds in the lineup. For over 2 decades, Brent Hinds was at the heart of Mastodon's sound. His guitar work was often described as unorthodox, full of unexpected bends, off-kilter rhythms, and sudden bursts of melody that broke through the heaviness. His voice, alternating between guttural screams and surprisingly tender, clean vocals, added further texture to the band's dynamic. But beyond the technical aspects, it was Hinds' sheer unpredictability that made him so compelling. He was never content to play it safe. His willingness to take risks gave Mastodon's music its vitality. That's why the announcement in March 2025 that Mastodon and Hinds had mutually decided to part ways stunned fans worldwide. For many, Mastodon without Hinds was unimaginable. At first, the statement seemed amicable, but in the weeks that followed, Hinds suggested a far more contentious split. On social media, he claimed he had been kicked out of the band and even called his former bandmates horrible humans. While the full truth behind the separation may never be known, it was clear that decades of collaboration had ended on bitter terms. Fans held out hope that time might heal the wounds, and some dreamed of a reunion. The tragedy of Hinds' sudden death is compounded by the knowledge that reconciliation will never come. Despite leaving Mastodon, Hinds remained musically active. He continued performing with his surfabilly project Fiend Without a Face, his eclectic band West End Motel, and another act called Dirty B and the Boys. He had also contributed to supergroups like Giraffe Tongue Orchestra and Legend of the Seagull Men, proving his creativity was not confined to one genre. At the time of his death, Hinds was reportedly preparing for a European tour with Fiend Without a Face, energized by the prospect of bringing his wild, genre-defying style to fans overseas once again. That tour will now never take place, leaving fans with only memories of his last performances. The news of his death prompted an outpouring of grief across the music community. Mastodon themselves, despite the difficult circumstances of their split, issued a heartfelt tribute on social media. "We are in a state of unfathomable sadness and grief. Last night Brent Hinds passed away as a result of a tragic accident. We are heartbroken, shocked, and still trying to process the loss of this creative force with whom we've shared so many triumphs, milestones, and the creation of music that has touched the hearts of so many. Our hearts are with Brent's family, friends, and fans. At this time, we please ask that you respect everyone's privacy during this difficult time." Fans responded in kind. On Reddit and Twitter, thousands shared their memories of discovering Mastodon for the first time, often pointing to Hinds' riffs as the hook that drew them in. Some expressed deep sadness that the rift between Hinds and the band would never be resolved, while others simply celebrated the decades of music he had given them. Fellow musicians, from metal icons to indie rockers, shared their own tributes, many praising Hinds as a guitarist whose style was impossible to copy and whose influence would endure for generations. Brent Hinds' death marks the end of an era in heavy metal. His contributions to Mastodon reshaped the landscape of the genre in the 2000s and 2010s, helping to prove that metal could be both crushingly heavy and artistically ambitious. His legacy lives on in the 8 studio albums he recorded with Mastodon, in the side projects that showcased his restless creativity, and in the countless musicians he inspired. More than anything, his passing is a reminder of how fragile life can be, even for someone whose music felt larger than life. For the fans who grew up with Mastodon, albums like Leviathan, Blood Mountain, and Crack the Sky will always carry the spirit of Brent Hinds. His riffs, his solos, his snarling vocals, and his unpredictable energy are etched into those records forever. While his life was cut short, his impact was immense. As the metal world mourns, one thing is certain: Brent Hinds will not be forgotten.